Hello and welcome to the Having Said That show. My name is Adi, and like most 20-somethings out there, my entire life I have struggled with love, relationships, and authenticity. And today, that is what we're going to be tackling, guys. Growing up in India, I feel like we have a completely warped relationship with the masculine and feminine dynamics. From the moment we're born, many of us are raised in households where fathers are absent under the guise of providing and mothers are sacrificial in an attempt to maintain peace. And as a result, we've failed to give our men strong role models or provide our women with a safe and secure environment. And when I look around, even at myself, I can clearly see how that absence of healthy love has carried deep wounds into every relationship we've had ever since. I also know that personally, as a musician, I have listened to and watched things growing up that have reinforced certain ideas that reinforce bizarre stereotypes of my identity as a man and unhealthy patterns towards the opposite sex. And what's worse is that I know that I have been at the unconscious end of perpetuating those same ideas. And while this cultural and social programming has left our generation lonelier than ever, there are some incredible voices out there trying to change that. Voices that are trying to bring us back from our conditioning to our authentic selves and deepen our ability to experience love. If you have ever had this deep-seated knowing that there's something wrong with our culture of dating and a general lack of devotion and commitment around you, trust me, you are in for a treat this episode. Our guest today specializes in masculine and feminine dynamics. He is a coach, he is an author, an hypnotherapist, and more than anything, I really credit his work as playing a pivotal role in my ongoing development as a human being. It is my absolute honor, guys, to introduce our first ever virtual guest on the Having Said That show, the extremely insightful Lorin. Lorin, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor to be here, and what a deep intro. Thank you for that.
Of course. And look, before we get started, I did share with you a little bit before the interview that this show has catered to a light-hearted, candid, relaxed experience. When I started it, I was just 24 years old, and that's what my experience at the time could afford me. I think what I did unconsciously was it avoided a lot of the deeper issues my generation was actually facing. And it started becoming a bit of an escape for our audience. So today I wanted to shift that by having you on to really shed light on what I think is the biggest obstacle in one's development in life, which is an access to a healthy relationship. And I feel like the most earnest way to do that is by being completely honest about the things that I've personally been through that led me to want to have this conversation in the first place. So through the course of this interview, I want to offer you and the audience, for the first time ever, unfiltered honesty in an attempt to help people understand the depth of pain that something like this has caused me, and conversely, the heights of joy I felt once I saw myself starting to heal from that. Does that sound like a valuable proposition to you, Lorin?
It absolutely does. I'm impressed by the depth of this interview.
Okay, then having said that, let's jump into the interview. And I just wanted to say that in order to preface certain questions, I might ask you to briefly explain certain terms that I've heard you use quite often in your work, but that the audience might not be aware of. So I hope that's okay. All right, let's get into it. So I wanted to mention, Lorin, that I was introduced to you by my girlfriend about a year ago. She was the first person to awaken my desire towards a sacred union. But I think that term is something that we should really define before we get into this interview. So could you tell us what is a sacred union and why you consider one's relationship as the highest spiritual practice?
It's a great question to start with. The way I would define sacred union or a conscious relationship is the opposite of what most people experience. Most people enter relationship often with expectations that they're able to escape or experience a sense of heightened joy, heightened passion, and heightened intimacy, which might be available at the beginning, specifically in the honeymoon phase, but then eventually something happens in any relationship, no matter how conscious two individuals are. Deeper pain and dynamics are exposed. I always like to say we can do a lot of healing on ourselves individually, but there is certain pain and wounding that we might not even know we carry. And then when we enter a relationship, suddenly we realize, wow, this has been inside me. And it's almost like a shock. You've got people who feel so secure when they're single. And when they enter a relationship, suddenly they become very anxious. They're afraid of being abandoned.
Sure.
They're constantly withdrawing. They're becoming very avoidant. So relationship by nature is here to shine a light on both our light and our darkness. And most people are here for the light, but when it comes to our darkness being exposed, which means our shadow, our ego, the ways we perhaps are not entirely honest with ourselves, how we're not being in integrity, perhaps, that is when things get challenging. And that is when sacred union starts. Sacred union doesn't start with, wow, it's amazing, the intimacy, it's all sacred. Sacred union starts when the inevitable challenge of any relationship arises and both individuals express their devotion and commitment to work through it together, to heal, and I like to use the word evolve together, right? And the moment this becomes a mutual devotion and commitment, that is really when sacred union begins. Not the ecstasy and sense of, wow, the intimacy, everything is perfect. It's that moment when our heart wants to close and we soften and open it. It's that moment when we are triggered and we want to run, but we stand here and we take a deep breath. That's when sacred union begins.
Okay, amazing. Then I know I'm on the right track in my current relationship, because I have been very scared and very frightened a lot of the time. So it sounds like that's the healthy way to approach my relationship. And you know, I've heard you say, I wanted to quote you on this, guys. I'm going to be quoting Lorin here. I wanted a sacred union, but in my earlier days, I was hijacked by an ungrounded nervous frenzy that was trying to escape the pain from the trauma in my past. I had to go through my journey before meeting my now wife. Yeah. And Lorin, when I hear you speak, I can sense this confidence that only reformation brings. And I was just wondering, I would love to hear more about the journey you undertook and how it brought you on the path to want to affect the same change for others. And as promised, I will respond with the story of my journey as well.
Thank you for that. So my journey really began when my father was diagnosed with cancer. I was 11 years old, and it was a 3.5 year long brutal battle with cancer, where eventually he became thinner and thinner and weaker, and eventually died while I was holding his hand. And it was a really, really intense and painful experience for me, because in that moment you also already touched upon that in the intro as well, about role models, specifically healthy masculine role models. So in that moment, the ground was taken from my feet. My role model disappeared in that moment. And that, as painful as it was, it also led to a deeper quest in my life. I was face to face with death at a very early age, and that changed everything in my life, absolutely everything, because it reshuffled in that sense my priorities. What I believed was important before was no longer important then. So there became a deep hunger and drive to find deeper meaning, deeper answers, to find my deeper mission, my what I call soul's purpose, or the medicine and light we're meant to share with the world. But of course, there came also a deep trauma with that, specifically a huge abandonment wound. When we lose someone, it can, even though it is to death in that moment, he didn't abandon me, but his death, of course, felt like my body as a child registered it as a deep abandonment. It's the same pain. So with this grief and this pain, I didn't realize, but an avoidance also started to kick in, even though I was on the right path. But we can be on the right path and have the best intentions, right? And we then still notice that we're avoiding and we have certain blind spots. So long story short, in that, what I didn't notice, there came a desire to not have to feel this abandonment wound. Right? And from that place, I was seeking union. I was seeking union from a place of not wanting to feel pain. And for the listener right now, it's very different when you're seeking a relationship and union from not wanting to feel pain. Just feel into the difference for everyone listening. or watching, or from a place of, I want to expand with that person. I want to go deeper than ever before. I want to evolve together. There's a different energy around that and a different intent. So that, of course, led me down very painful experiences, which you already said I had to go through. I always say each individual has to go through a journey of soul preparation, right?
Yeah.
In order to meet and be ready for that, we need to go through certain experiences. So I had to go through a lot of pain. I had to go through suffering in order to truly face this abandonment wound and to no longer say, oh, I want a union to escape pain. No, it became, I am facing this pain and I want to go even deeper in a union. And that's kind of that shift and distinction.
Thank you. Thank you for being so vulnerable, Lorin. And I mean, I completely relate to seeking love out of a sense of lack, a sense of I don't have something that I need to be looking for. I told you that I wanted to use this interview to share more about myself that I haven't really with my audience, to help them understand the vulnerable nature of undertaking a journey like this. And let me just tell you a story. So as uncommon as this may be, I was in a 12-year-long relationship from ages 13 to 25. And due to severely low self-esteem, I developed a very unhealthy relationship with attention and validation. And this caused me to act out of integrity and exhibit unfaithfulness on several occasions that slowly but surely made me lose my sense of respect for myself in its entirety. And I had a tough time dealing with this, and I found that over the years, I had developed somewhat of a persona that I don't think I recognized or resonated with at all. What's interesting, Lorin, is that in the wake of this realization, I met my now girlfriend, who had in some way undergone this journey that you are speaking of already. She was 6 years older than me when I met her. And when I think back to that moment, I don't know, it feels like something out of pure luck that this person took a liking to me before I had consciously chosen to undertake the same journey. And when she was able to show me that kind of kindness, I immediately started feeling unsure of my deservedness of it. And I know that you said you had to undergo your journey before meeting your wife, but the burning question I have is, how does one know that the journey has ended, or at least reached a point that they are ready for their partner? Because I certainly did not feel that way. I still am in a lot of pain often in going through this journey and having that cause any amount of pain to my girlfriend.
Yeah, you ask very deep questions. And I believe it's so important, this question specifically, because people can then fall into an illusion that they have to get to a certain place in order to be ready. And let's talk about this practically. What does it mean to be ready? Being ready doesn't mean we have healed all our wounds. We never feel any pain again. We have no triggers and defense mechanisms. And we're just eternally open to divine love, receive it and give it fully and wholeheartedly. That doesn't mean being ready. Being ready means when we have the willingness and capacity to deal and face everything that arises, even if it arises 100 times per day. If you or anyone wants to run, as an example, 10 times per day, that doesn't mean one is not ready. Because if the capacity and willingness is there to sit with that, to feel into that, and not to entirely identify with that shadow or wound or whatever we're speaking of in this example, then by definition, they are ready. It's the awareness of it, and it's also the conscious action that is taken again and again. And I think that's very important for every listener here, because this, like you said something very important. You didn't feel worthy of her, right? I had the same experience. I did not feel worthy of my wife, right? I didn't feel, wow, I'm receiving all this love. Am I good enough? Am I strong enough as a man? Can I really hold that? Because an interesting thing here, the people who sometimes don't feel worthy often have the most genuine heart, because they're connected to the responsibility of it. When a woman opens her heart to you, you realize you've got a responsibility there. This is not just a nice thing and whatever. This is deep. This is serious. If she opens her heart, you have got the power to shatter her heart within seconds by your actions, by your conscious or unconscious reactions. So by definition, that responsibility, specifically for us men, it can cause a deep fear. Are we ready? Can we hold this? But just the fact that you can articulate that, you can see it, and you can say, this is what's going on, reveals a level of consciousness where you are fully ready. Not being ready would mean if one could not hold this awareness.
Sure.
And what is this awareness? It's one thought that says, run. It's another thought that says, this is truth. This feels right. Just by being able to have this awareness, one is ready.
I think it really relates to one of the most profound things that I experienced with my girlfriend, which was the way she was able to stand in her power and really catalyze my moral awakening. I was so impressed by the way that she was able to set boundaries. And I realized that that is something that maybe the women watching this, we have a large female audience, maybe they don't realize they have the power to do. I know that there are a lot of women in our audience that might not recognize the role that they can play in this dynamic of a relationship. How do you think the feminine is able to harness that power of their femininity?
And you say something very important here, and I'll just give a little bit of a background for the audience here as well. When we're talking about women struggling with setting boundaries and struggling to really express their voice fully, we're not just talking of a challenge that is happening in today's world. We're speaking of a deeper kind of generational trauma that comes from the suppression of women, from the feminine. I mean, you go back in history and you will see a constant theme. You will see a theme where the feminine has been suppressed. It starts with holy scripts that talk about women's power being deliberately taken out, right? It continues with, and there are many examples, but the witch hunts, and there's so many examples that are not just examples where women's voice were shut down, but literally as a woman speaking your truth and setting a boundary was life-threatening. And now we know through cutting-edge research as well that these traumas and collective wounding, they continue. Pain and wounding doesn't go anywhere unless we transform it. It's that old saying or ancient saying, energy doesn't disappear. It can only be transformed. That energy continues to stay there through behavior, through limiting beliefs, it gets passed on. So many women, not only with a challenging relationship with their father and challenging relationships with men, which of course create trauma and wounding and pain in this life, but also from before. So you've got a wild mix of pain from the past and pain from this life. And you said something very important, which I think is very profound, what you said in a short sentence there. You said many women might actually not be aware they have this power. Because when one is stripped away of their voice, it's almost like you don't have a voice. And it's almost like a remembrance of, wait a moment, I do have a voice. And I'm not going to die or be rejected. I am actually inviting a man's true presence, inviting a man's true commitment. It's the ultimate embodiment of love. So you asked me how women can harness this, the way your partner is harnessing it. She, in that moment, did not let you get away with unconscious habits or limiting beliefs or fears that stand in the way between you, her, and the highest love. And that is that harnessing.
Yeah, I just feel like it is so rare in a country like India for women to be that strong. I don't deny the fact that they have the ability, but like you said, it is years and years of conditioning where to the point where, I am just now seeing my own mother after 30 years of marriage being able to harness her power for the first time. And it feels inspiring, but it does feel very sad as well to feel like it took that long. And India, I don't know if you know how patriarchal it is, but it is something that will take a lot of time. So I think it's important for us to have discussions like this and speak to the younger audience and really equip them with exactly what you said, which is the power to just understand that they have power.
I've got an abstract thought that I don't often share, but a place like India where there is so much wisdom, so much energetic power, so much spiritual depth, sometimes I am almost in a way shocked that places where the most wisdom comes from, there seem to be such deep generational trauma. And if you look throughout the world, it seems that there is almost a theme of that in that world. Now, that's just an abstract thought that I'm sharing. It might not resonate with everyone. Yes, I am familiar to a degree. I've worked with people and with clients and specifically couples from India, which has really changed my understanding of suppression of the feminine, that the man, even though he might be very unconscious, holds more power very often, and that this generational trauma gets kind of passed on, dimming women's light, dimming the daughter. The daughter cannot unfold her wings.
I think it might be a good time right now to really discuss the words feminine and masculine, because it might be something that is misconstrued by a lot of people. A lot of people might equate masculine with, dominance, and feminine with passiveness or whatever. But I've heard you speak a lot about polarity in your work, and I just wanted you to expound on that and maybe explain it to our audience as to, hey, is femininity and masculinity a gender-based thing? Is it something that we all have access to and are learning to balance in our lives? I would love to hear your thoughts on polarity, Lorin.
Yeah, thank you for that. When it comes to polarity and masculine, feminine, there are a lot of stereotypes in today's world. So when people see, masculine, feminine dynamics, they might already believe, like you mentioned, this means the woman is working at home, is cleaning the kitchen, the man is providing, and it's that kind of dynamic, and there is nothing else to it. And that is not at all in the slightest what I'm referring to. Because when you actually look at the deeper and ancient teachings, it doesn't matter what tradition you speak of. I mean, we speak of the yin and yang, we speak of Tantra, right? And there's so many different aspects of Tantra as well. The divine masculine, divine feminine, Shiva, Shakti. You can see a continuous theme of that, as above, so below. So the moon, the sun, so many different expressions of that. And none of these expressions are equating this to masculine means man, dominance, feminine means woman, submissive. Now, I do use heterosexual language, that is true, for poetic reasons and clarity and simplicity, but we all have masculine, feminine energies within us, right? So every man also has feminine energy within him. Every woman also has masculine energy within them. And really what polarity is not trying to become more masculine or becoming more feminine. That in itself can be a trap, because before you spoke about roles, how we play roles, and then we receive admiration for a role, but it's not our true self. It's not our authentic self. So we're drained by that rather than nurtured. So polarity really is when we step into what I call our authentic core. And our authentic core is different to every individual. It is the interplay and the embodiment of both of these energies within us. Everyone's energy, everyone's transmission is different. And when we own that fully, and we fully step into it, by definition, we create magnetism, we create attraction. Last thing I will say here, where confusion can come in is very often, of course, men will have a lot of masculine energy within them. And that's their natural core. But it doesn't mean that's the case for every man or feminine for every woman.
When I first heard that you used the word polarity, I assumed that in any successful sacred union, each individual must be in some way complementary to each other within their own polarity. Is that the case, or am I misunderstanding that?
The way I would frame it is, there is a beautiful saying that goes, we are deeply drawn and attracted to our polar opposite.
Sure.
This doesn't mean polar opposite in values, virtues. No. Values and virtues, when we're talking about compatibility, it's not the polar opposite. You want respect, the other person mistreats people. Absolutely not. We're talking of same values, same virtues, or similar values and virtues. But I give you an example from my own personal experience. The way I deal with life or handle triggers or challenges can be very different to the way my wife will handle them. I've got a strong masculine core, but I also have feminine energy, which I do access, right? And my wife has a very strong feminine core. So in a way, yes, you use the word, we complement each other deeply, right? In my greatest weakness is often her greatest strength. My greatest strength is often her greatest weakness.
Yep.
And in that way, we become, I don't want to say more powerful, but together, we are able to deepen our field of presence and embodiment and even strength and resilience in that way.
Amazing. Lorin, I did want to go back and reveal a little bit more about myself. So let's do that. It is very clear from my past that I shared with you that I have struggled with the truth. You know, lying had become a pattern, almost second nature. And what was worse that I realized later was that I wasn't even able to acknowledge the truth about myself to myself. And I know you write that the highest form of intimacy is truth. And I just wanted to ask, you know, what do you think contributes to shying away from such kind of intimacy? And how might one intentionally and consciously approach every situation with truth?
Let's use a direct example so every listener can relate. Woman, man, couple, doesn't matter. Let's say in a relationship, the woman, using a heterosexual example, the woman brings up a specific challenge and request. So she might express a very common challenge or request that she doesn't fully feel him. He's not being very present. He might physically, the man might be in the same place. He might even provide if that's the dynamic that this couple finds themselves in. But he's not there with his energy, with his presence. Because commitment is not just not cheating and providing or anything along those lines. Commitment is our energy. It's how open our heart is. It's our willingness to repair, heal, and face whatever stands between us and the highest love. So using this example, she brings that up, right? And in that moment, using this example, the man might become defensive. He might say, but I'm providing. Or he might say, but what do you want? I am next to you. My body is next to you. In that moment, that wouldn't be the highest truth. In that moment, that would be a defense mechanism. It would be identifying with our ego, right? Trying to win the argument rather than truly see the truth of what she actually has touched upon. This doesn't mean the feminine is always right and she's on a pedestal. We are all equals in this. But if we get triggered and very activated, right, it's almost always a surefire sign that there is something to look at that we don't want to look at.
Sure.
So in this example, what is truth? Truth would be, and not many people can actually express this. Truth would be, baby, what you have just shared with me feels really intense for me. I am struggling, I am triggered, and I want to defend myself. But at the same time, I'm not going to do that because I love you. And that's not how I want to treat you or show up in the relationship. I can see the truth in what you're sharing. This is more than words, because a man might take this script and read it out loud, but it won't land. A woman who is really in touch with her intuition, she will feel it. Like, what script are you reading? What movie have you watched? Have you listened to, right, whoever? It has to come from the heart. When I say embodied, I'm talking, it's not just words, but there's a deeper felt sense. There is weight, energetic weight behind it. But when a man says this from his truth, wow, that truth doesn't make him weaker. That truth has a deep vulnerability to it, but that truth will create a magnetism and attraction and a level of safety for the woman that most women have never experienced, and most men have never realized they can create and provide for a woman. And that is truth, because where truth is, intimacy flows, and in the absence of truth, games, painful dynamics, father wounds, mother wounds, wanting to win, wanting to be right, all this emerges in the absence of truth. But with truth, intimacy flows effortlessly.
I have definitely experienced several times where, sometimes it feels like just words are being said. And sometimes when I say something, I can feel my girlfriend feel it. And that feels so powerful. It feels powerful to even be able to do that myself. So I definitely relate to that. And like I said, Lorin, we have a very, very young audience watching this. And this is the age of Instagram. Everyone seems so accessible, and there are so many options seemingly online. And I feel like that a lot of people struggle with meeting someone because in the back of their mind, they wonder if there's something better out there. And sometimes they even feel insecure as a result of thinking this, because they think that their partner also might be thinking this. And I just want to know your perspective on this. How do you keep your head on straight? How do you stay focused? How do you ensure that your partner feels like you are focused on that relationship? And what are the signs that, that might not be the case?
Yeah. Let's speak to young people specifically here, from the age of 17 to 25, for instance. Specifically when it's about Instagram, when it's a lot about the ego being very active, games, you hear advice online that tells women or men that you have to make yourself, you have to be very detached, you have to do certain things to create attraction, which is a form of manipulation, right? People are actively being told, you see these viral videos online of do these 10 things to make a woman or man irresistibly attracted to you. You hear things such as don't text them back, don't do this, don't speak to them, don't treat them well. It gets even darker and more bizarre the deeper you go into that hole. And also when you look at algorithms, let's talk about that very briefly. But when a young man or young woman watches these things, the algorithm will show more and more and more, because the algorithms are trained, or the AI works in a way that the more time you spend on something, the more it gives you, so you spend more on the platform for them to earn more money through advertisements and other reasons as well. So there is this whole algorithm trap and insecurity, right? And the algorithm is it's not that the algorithm is creating insecurity, but the algorithm is feeding the insecurity. And the way I like to describe this for young people is, and this is very intense, and I understand what I'm about to say might seem almost a little bit paradoxical. Can you really do that? But I believe it's the only way out. It's young people who decide to stop playing this game. The game of trying to be someone else. The game of listening to someone who tells you that who you are in your truth is not good enough and you need to manipulate your way. If a young person is able to exit that game, or at least treats Instagram, treats time on social media in a much more conscious and intentional way, I actually believe that in today's world, these people will not just be the most fulfilled people, but these people will be the trailblazers who actually, rather than being sucked into that, they will be able to bring into this world something of true meaning, something of true purpose. Now, what is the challenge here? The challenge is that as humans, we want to belong. Young people want to belong. They want to belong to a tribe, to a friend group. So, and each friend group will have a system or a hierarchy in that sense, which is unconscious, but it's a hierarchy of, for instance, for men. If you sleep with a lot of women, you are seen as a high value man. All these kind of rankings and totally insecure ideas and systems that get created, right? So how do we stop playing that game? It is by no longer participating in it. This threatens our very sense for belonging. But my question to young people here is, do you want to belong to places where you don't really feel at home and where you have to pretend? Or do you want to actually free yourself from that and create something new or connect with people who also decide to no longer engage in that insecurity, in these mind games and manipulation? And it's not an easy ask. It's not easy. I understand that. But at the same time, it is possible. We can make that choice. I know I talked very long here, but let me know if this answers your question or if you've got a follow-up question. But I find this very, very important for young people to really understand what is going on, how their insecurities are being fed, and how they can be courageous and step out of that game altogether.
I think my follow-up would be that I don't think a lot of people realize that they are victims of this game. I wonder if you could shed light on some of the ways in which unconsciously we are a part of this system that, constantly reiterates to us that we need to be accepted, and in order to be accepted, we have to pretend to be someone we are not, or play games that we don't want to. I think that it's very unconscious and very subconscious the way that happens. I know for a fact that, up until a year ago, I would participate in this, where I would post things on Instagram that I knew would get attention, that I knew would give me a little boost of dopamine every couple of days. And it really took me a long time to figure that out. And I was just wondering, how do we catalyze that for the people watching right now? How do we make them more aware of their behaviors that might be harming them in the long run?
You already gave the exact example I wanted to give. Each time a young person shares something on Instagram, not with the intent of a deeper reason to be of service or to share a joyful moment, but with the sole intent of being liked for something that might not be who they truly are deep down, but something that is perceived as cool, as interesting, or as trendy, right? That is the game. So, and you are right, it takes a lot of consciousness and awareness to even be honest with ourselves that we are playing that game, right? Of playing a role and to be liked for something that is who we are truly not. The question that young people, and to really make them aware of their behavior, is ultimately a simple question. And that is to ask themselves, why am I doing what I am doing? It's a simple question. Why? And it's a difficult question, because most people would have never asked themselves this question. Why am I sharing this? Why am I saying certain things in a friend group? Is it to be liked? Is it to be seen a certain way? Why am I behaving a certain way on a first date? Is it because that's who I genuinely am? Or is it because I've heard that is how you need to show up in order to control a certain outcome at the end of it? And if you really ask yourself that question, most young people, and no shame here, this is unconscious. Like I said, it's not like any young person decides to participate in this game of insecurity and keeps feeding it. No one of us does this consciously. We've been kind of conditioned into this. So it's really about asking yourself why, and then you have to be honest with yourself, right? And just one thing to add in there is to really make this even more practical for the young people here. What is confidence? Confidence is not trying to be something and then to be seen in that. Confidence is when you don't even attempt to do that in itself anymore. You don't seek that. You are it, right? You embody it. That's when true attraction and magnetism, true connection and intimacy is born.
I think an underlying issue that definitely instigated my behavior on social media and otherwise was a general lack of integrity in my relationships. I felt like I struggled with this almost foundational element of life. And I have seen you speak a lot about how that is really one of the most important things, because that is where your confidence stems from. That is where your ability to be yourself stems from in the face of 100 different voices. And integrity, honor, devotion, the interplay of these three, I feel like have been at the forefront of my focus as of late. But I really would love to know from you, Lorin. I've seen you speak about, taking the time to spend time with yourself in nature to really relearn about integrity. But what are some tools that we can equip people with to really feel like they have a strong sense of it, an unshakable sense of integrity?
One can avoid almost everything. They can escape almost everything, but they cannot escape themselves. That is where integrity begins. When we realize that we cannot get away from ourselves. A person might get away with lying, with dishonesty, with being out of integrity, but they still have to wake up in the morning and they have to face themselves in the mirror. And the feeling and the shame and the guilt of knowing that we are not entirely being honest, that is something that's very painful. A person who is out of integrity and who has everything in their life, the quote-unquote amazing dream partner, dream wife or dream husband, the best house, all the financial means, success. We believe that person might be happy, but I can tell you that person is poor. That person is a beggar, a beggar. And I'm using intense language, but I'm really trying to create a contrast here. Whereas a person who might not be in that situation, but who is living with integrity, they will still have challenges. It's not a quick recipe to enlightenment. But at the end of the day, they can be with themselves. They know in their hearts of hearts that what they are doing is right for themselves and right for others. And no one can truly be confident, right, when they are out of integrity. Because this shame and guilt, it's always there. We can avoid it. We can tell ourselves it's not there. We can say it's not a big deal. But I'll give you an example. A person who cheats in a relationship and who has to hold that lie, that structure of dishonesty, that person by definition cannot be fully present, cannot be fully committed. And they can never fully be devoted either, because there is just a lack of energy to a degree. There's just something there. Even though we can't put a name to it, it's there. It's like a wall. Yeah. Whereas if a person is honest with themselves, can be with themselves and knows that what they're doing is in service for the highest good and tells the truth, then it's just devotion, presence, true intimacy, true connection. All of that flows effortlessly. And the most important thing, when that person becomes successful, then they're able to receive the abundance.
Yeah.
Example, someone does a podcast and they play a role in that podcast. It's not who they are. They say it because it gets clicks. They will never feel the abundance of the listeners, of maybe the brand deals or whatever. We're talking about kind of abundance in every way, of beauty. But if it's truly them, wow, you can feel it, you can receive it.
When in my intro, when I said that, I wanted to be honest to show you what it felt like to feel the depth of sadness, I think it was born completely out of a misalignment of integrity. Exactly what you spoke about. You could have everything going for you. You could have your career on the rise. You could have friends around you that are seemingly your best friends or whatever. But if they don't know this aspect of you, are they really your friends? That's how I started feeling towards the tail end of my relationship, when I understood that this is not the way that I can continue living my life. And it was after that I really felt the peak happiness that I could feel just by simply being or living with some sort of integrity for the first time. And it felt so powerful, Lorin, that I just want everyone to experience that in the same way that you do.
It's also, it's the hardest thing to do, because it means facing the shame that we are running from, right? That's why I say when I do men's work, specifically men's work, the first step is, where do you need to reclaim integrity? And I will hold spaces, and I hold spaces where men, strong men, successful men, powerful men, they fall apart. Not in a weak way, not in a collapsing way, but they fall apart and tears run down their cheeks because for the first time they're getting in touch with that shame. And this is also why I believe it's so hard for young people or any person to do this work, because the real work is always the hard work. It's not posting on Instagram how you're meditating. It's going into the shame in your meditation. And that is not sexy. That is not fun. That is really painful. I'm not a saint. I'm not here as a guru who always was in full integrity. I had to sit in my own pain and being out of integrity. I had to weep and really hold myself in that and be like, wow, there's so much shame. There is so much guilt. But that too, as we talked about before, is a preparation for a true life of fulfillment and a true life of devotion and commitment in union.
I really don't know how to deal with the word shame. I feel like I have felt so shameful about some of the things in my past that when they come up, I actively find myself trying to avoid thinking about it. And, you know, this comes in the form of overconsumption of media or substances. And I realized that it never really takes it away. It doesn't even numb it. It just delays the experience of it. You feel it while you're over-consuming and then after for some time. What do you think are the best tools to deal with and put yourself through the process of this pain, of going through your past and everything that you feel shame about and really coming out the other side stronger?
Good people feel the most shame. Genuine people feel the most shame. And that shame can become a form of self-punishment. How do I say this in the best way for the listener? Shame is an emotion that is a teacher. Every emotion can be a teacher. And if shame had a voice, it will often say to us, don't do this anymore. This is not in alignment. This doesn't help you and it doesn't help anyone. That's a beautiful teacher. We can all agree, wow, yeah, that's an important and healthy teacher. But when shame becomes something where we keep punishing ourselves for the things we've done in the past, even though we have reclaimed integrity, we have restored integrity, then it's a form of self-punishment, right? So we need to be very mindful. Where is shame a teacher that's leading us to take conscious action, repair, and restoring alignment and integrity? And where is shame a reoccurring theme, a wave that takes us with it, and we're just in that suffering and in that pain? Now, when we talk about the process of moving through this, I actually have a very intense, warrior-like, but truthful approach to it, which is, as you already said, the substances, overconsumption of media, you still feel the shame. And afterwards, you feel a lack of presence and even more shame. So it does, I would say, to add to what you said powerfully, not just does it delay it, it also disconnects you even more and you lack even more presence then. So a very powerful thing to do is, oh, I'm feeling shame right now. Let me feel it to the end. Let me actually really feel this at the deepest level. And there is a paradox here. If I say to you right now, feel your shame at the deepest and most profound level. Feel really ashamed right now, right? It sounds intense and I don't want you to feel that, obviously, but it creates a it creates a paradox where it's like, okay, let me feel that fully right now. It interrupts the pattern of avoidance, and it teaches our body and nervous system, I actually have the capacity to hold that and to move through that. I wouldn't recommend this to people struggling with severe trauma. There's a huge disclaimer here. If there has been severe trauma, abuse, or really intense challenges, going right into the shame might be the opposite, because it can reactivate trauma. This should be done. In that case, it should be done with a professional, with someone who really has the skills to help you navigate this deeply. But for people who have cultivated some capacity to be able to feel their emotions without a reactivation of deep trauma, here a powerful practice can be, okay, let me feel real shame, deeply ashamed right now. And in that moment, your body goes, what? Okay, well, I'll try. And it's almost like in that moment, you develop a capacity to actually not just bring a sense of humor, but also bring a sense of strength to be able to hold that experience. Because the pattern can only exist by running away from it. The pattern is running, feeling it, and it kind of keeps feeding that shame. You see?
I think one of the most common conversations I've had in the last couple of years with people, aged 25 and above, has been about monogamy versus polygamy. I know that it is there has been a sharp uptick in the amount of people that are vouching towards the latter, and I found something that you said extremely interesting. I just wanted to make sure I get it right, but monogamy is the devotion to the highest love. What is the highest love?
It's a good question. Let's use a direct example. If I were to put words to the highest love, or try to explain the divine, the sacred, God, universe, whatever language one uses, if I put words to it, it wouldn't do it justice, because they're just words. They're not a lived experience. We can get a little bit closer to it if I describe a felt experience. It doesn't mean the felt experience is that, but it means everyone can be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Almost every person, I don't want to say this, but many people, or certain people, have had experiences where they are aware deeply in love, and they were perhaps intimate with another. And they had a moment where all their suffering and pain just for a moment dissipated. Just for a moment they felt fully themselves. They felt a deep sense of love in that moment. They were almost for a moment free of the consistent, painful, negative thoughts, the shame they're avoiding. Just intimacy can do this to us, even if it's just a brief moment. Love can do this to us in a relationship, right? And I'm not saying this is the highest love, but I am saying it can be a window into what is possible, a window into our true nature. I would say highest love is our true nature. Our true nature is that experience where we can ultimately be fully ourselves, we can fully speak and live our truth, and we are not just welcomed, we are fully received in that. So one is no longer trying to make a relationship work, but one is so fully unapologetically living their truth that in itself creates attraction and creates intimacy, right? So that would be an example of how we can point toward that, a window, so to speak.
And contrasting that with polygamy, where do you think that might fall short of it giving you or affording you the same kind of experience?
It is no secret that I'm deeply monogamous in my marriage, and that is I don't want to say model, but that is my truth. But that doesn't mean I don't hold space for other people's experiences or what they want to experience. All I'm saying is there can be a huge trap in a polyamorous relationship. And that trap can be that if someone struggles with a commitment wound or with avoidant tendencies, then it might seem like the natural path for them, because it's the path of that is not activating their deeper pain.
The path of least resistance.
The path of least resistance, exactly. I just had that in my mind, that path. And it's great to use that when it comes to productivity and doing things in your mission. In certain ways, there's nothing wrong about the path of least resistance. It's just, are we being honest with ourselves? And in that conversation, many people are not honest with themselves and will seek a polyamorous relationship model, whereas in truth, in a monogamous and committed and devoted relationship, they'd actually have the opportunity to really go deeper into certain avoidant tendencies within themselves. If a person can come to me and can really, in an embodied way, say to me that they have done this, they have faced this, and polyamory is their path, then I will say, I respect you. But I have to be honest, I didn't experience this very often.
Sure.
I haven't fully seen that. And I don't want to judge anyone out there, but there is just a huge room for spiritual bypassing. And just to give an example of the kind of guru example, the guru who says, just be free, just be wild, right? And then later it comes out that there has been a deep, dark sexual shadow. All kinds of scandals are suddenly revealed.
Yeah.
And you start to ask yourself, okay, is this real spirituality? No, obviously not. There is something deeper. And that is why I see monogamy as such an incredible path, because you cannot avoid and bypass the sexual shadow.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And it sucks that we are here, that this is where society is. It sucks that we have been drawn away from deep devotional love and into distractions that keep us away from it. And to end this conversation, Lorin, I would love to hear your case to everyone out there who has been tricked into believing that such a love is not worth searching for.
Many people will say, and they said it to me, that love is just a chemical reaction. It's not out there for you. It's just a feeling. It's just a honeymoon phase. It's just a fantasy. And my wife was told the same thing. Gladly, we both never believed these things. Number one, who are the people who say this? They are not the people who are in a fulfilled and devoted relationship. It doesn't come from them, right? If you come from a science background, you see that there is all the proof in the world. And a Harvard study actually revealed this recently, which is incredible, that the people who are in a committed, or the people in a fulfilled marriage, right, they live the longest. So we're not talking about a health stamp, but even from that perspective, it shows us what a profound impact that has. But at a deeper energetic and spiritual level, most people, if they go deep enough in their journey, will eventually encounter a deep sense of emptiness in the chasing, running from one relationship to the next. At some point, that thrill, that novelty doesn't actually do anything to them. They realize they have become like a substance abuse almost.
Yeah.
They need more intensity, and the feeling and dopamine hit they get becomes less and less and less. And they feel emptier and emptier and emptier. And in that emptiness, often the real and deep yearning for union emerges. It's a quiet ache and yearning that I think is inside of all of us. But we all have to go through our journey of owning that, feeling that, and then following that fully.
Lorin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our audience today. And guys, if you have felt like this has provided you with any value, I would urge you to check out Lorin's work. It is incredible. It has personally helped me develop into a human being that feels like can be happy, healthy, and in deep devotional love with my girlfriend. It is such a beautiful feeling that I hope everyone gets to experience one day. And Lorin, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot tell you how much of a fan both me and my girlfriend are of you, and how grateful I am for you taking this time to really talk to us and talk to the audience and offer such amazing knowledge. Thank you so much.
It has been a true honor, and I will never say what I say right now lightly. Your embodiment and the weight behind your words and how you describe your experience, I believe you are a very, very powerful masculine role model for all the people listening.
Thank you so much, Lorin. That means the world coming from you. We hope to have you very, very soon back on the Having Said That show to talk more about relationships. And until then, guys, we will see you on the next episode of the Having Said That show.
I was wild in the wind, I'm looking for you. Why do I get the sense I know you? Why it might be the paranoia?